Welcome back to the Cartridge Twins, where today I'm going to look at 5 Switch games that you might have overlooked. These are games that I own physically, so I won't be including anything that I've purchased on the eShop. Another stipulation is that I've actually beaten these games, so nothing where I play through half the game and then I say, good enough, let's make a video. The game has been beaten, no matter how easy, short, long, difficult, it's been beaten. Also want to point out, these games are available on other platforms, but I played them for the Nintendo Switch, so if you have a different platform, I think this still applies, but I played on the Switch. So, if you're looking for a fun game to play that maybe isn't a mainline title, and it won't take you 80 hours to complete, then this is the video for you. Hopefully you find a game that looks interesting. With all that being said, let's jump in. First up, in the number 5 spot, we've got Clive and Wrench. Clive and Wrench is a 3D platformer video game developed by Dinosaur Byte and published by Numbskull Games. In Clive and Wrench, players control Clive, a monkey, and his robot companion, Wrench, as they embark on an adventure through various worlds and time periods. Clearly, the game gets its inspiration from 3D platformers like Banjo-Kazooie and Super Mario 64, featuring exploration, puzzle solving, and collecting various items. Initially, I gotta admit, I was pretty unimpressed with this game, especially in that first level. I was kinda, am I gonna get through this? Am I not? But I stayed with it. So, having said that, after about the second or third world, I figured out how the game worked, and I definitely got into a groove and started having fun. I found the level themes fresh and enjoyable, and that fact is probably what kept me going through to the end, just seeing the different level themes. Yeah, in this game, the hit detection feels weird at best. It's pretty rough. The game can be a bit glitchy, and the camera does take some getting used to, but if you're like me, and you were raised on those old school 90s platformers and dealing with the N64's janky camera, you will feel right at home. This is definitely a step up from those, but it's gonna feel extremely similar. So at the end of the day, the game was fun, it was memorable. The difficulty honestly felt just right, though there were a little cheap instances. But, you know, Clive and Wrench, it was a fun game. It's not without its flaws. But if you like the good old-fashioned 3D platformers, then I would say give this one a shot, especially with lately how cheap you can find it. Game number 4 on the list is Rodgers Radical Edition. This game just makes you feel truly rad. This is a 2D side-scrolling platformer developed by Slipgate Studios and published by THQ Nordic. It was initially released for the PC in 2016, and later made its way onto various platforms, including the Nintendo Switch, where I played it. This game pays homage to those classic 90s platformers that I love, with its vibrant and detailed pixel art and radical aesthetic. The game follows the adventures of Rodgers, a young boy who gets sucked into his TV and transported to a world of video games. Who wouldn't want that? Maybe. He's accompanied by Dusty, a sentient, foul-mouthed console who helps Rad on his journey. I loved the adult humor of this game, as it was so far removed from what I'm accustomed to in a 2D platformer of this style. It can be a bit on the difficult side, and at one point I did admittedly consider giving up toward the end, but I had way too much fun with the game to quit, and eventually I powered through. If you try this one out, I think you're gonna have a great time, even with that difficulty spike. So if you're up to a retro-inspired challenge, then I think Rodgers might just be the game for you. And now for the number 3 spot, we've got Marsupilami Hoob Adventure. So here we are with another 2D platformer, and this one really does not disappoint. Going in, I had no idea how much fun I was gonna have with this adventure. It got pretty solid reviews, but I had never played a game in the Marsupilami franchise. I just knew this was a genre I loved. It looked fun, the reviews were good, so I gave it a shot. I was definitely ready to free the forest animals from their curse in this wild platformer, as it says on the back of the box. As far as the story goes for the game, I honestly wouldn't have even remembered without looking it up. Basically, you choose one of 3 friends to set out on your adventure to chase down a ghost that the friends accidentally set loose by playing with a sarcophagus. This ghost is wreaking havoc on all the animals of the land, but thankfully, you, as a marsupilami, you're immune. The level design was fantastic. The difficulty really was not too challenging at all, and the length of the game was on the shorter side, having only 28 levels, but I was okay with that. Sometimes you just need a shorter adventure. It's a beautiful game, and I would put it up there with the likes of Rayman Legends, or even any of the newer Donkey Kong Country games. If you're looking for a short, solid 2D adventure that's not going to be overly challenging, I'd say give this one a go. In the runner-up spot, we've got New Super Lucky's Tale. New Super Lucky's Tale is a 3D platform video game developed by Playful Studios. Yes, another 3D platformer. It's an enhanced and expanded version or sequel of the original Super Lucky's Tale, which was initially released for the Oculus Rift virtual reality platform and later for the Xbox One. Again, this is another 3D platformer along the lines of the previously mentioned Clive and Wrench, but much more polished and accessible. This is another game that has vibrant and colorful levels, solid controls, and a fun platforming mascot. This has been a pretty common theme throughout this video. The narrative follows Lucky's quest to help his sister rescue the Book of Ages from the villainous Jinx and the mysterious kitty litter. The Book of Ages contains worlds and characters, and it's up to Lucky to prevent it from falling into the wrong hands. There isn't too much to the story, but there really doesn't need to be for this type of game. The game's very accessible to all age levels, and it's just a fun, breezy time. So if you're in the mood for a well-made 3D platformer on the easier side, New Super Lucky's Tale might just be the right choice for you. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we've got Kaze and the Wild Mass. Kaze and the Wild Mass is a 2D platformer developed by Pixel Hive and published by Sodesco. It draws inspiration from classic platformers of the 16-bit era, featuring vibrant graphics and tight gameplay. For me, this felt like a reskinned classic Donkey Kong Country. Players control Kaze, a rabbit who gains special abilities by wearing magical masks. The gameplay involves navigating through various levels, overcoming obstacles, defeating enemies, and collecting items, a tried and true gameplay experience. Throughout the game, Kaze can acquire different masks, each granting her unique abilities. These abilities include the power to dash, soar through the air, crush obstacles, and more. Players must strategically use these masks to overcome the challenges, and let me tell you, there is some real challenge here. But you never felt like giving up, it always felt fair. Every error feels like your own and not the game cheating you out of the experience. Though I will say that the last level and boss battle, it was tough. I can't even count high enough for how many times I had to retry this part of the game, but it was worth it. I loved it. This is probably the most difficult game on the list, but again, I think it's well worth it. To me, this game felt more like the OG Donkey Kong Country than even Tropical Freeze did. So if you love the challenge and gameplay of the old school Donkey Kong Country games, then definitely give this one a go as soon as possible. And there you have it, 5 games you maybe missed for the Nintendo Switch that I think are really worth playing. Have you played any of these games? Were some of my choices way obvious? Do you plan on trying any of them out? If so, I would appreciate if you let me know down in the comments. And until next time, remember, without video games, things do not seem to go as well.